I've been in a coaching role where my club was absolutely crushing it. We had great numbers, consistent turnouts every training, heaps of available coaches, and enthusiastic members who wanted to go to events to learn and represent the club at any opportunity. But I've also been in the coaching role where none of this was the case, where people turned up sporadically, where the majority of the work, coaching, governance, fundraising, communication, and almost everything else has been shouldered by only a few people. And because I know what it's like to be in both versions of the same club, I also had the opportunity to think really carefully about what the key components are in the club that could be considered healthy. So far on this channel, I've shared a lot about what I have found that works for coaches to increase their impact on people's learning. But this episode is going to be more about how we can start to influence the club culture to support these efforts. So today I wanted to share the three aspects of a healthy club culture that is enjoyable to be a part of and therefore more likely to keep people coming back and learning. But first, what do I mean by a healthy club? Well, no matter the unique goals and visions your club has, I think it's fair to assume that we all want our dojo to be a place where people learn Kendo while developing the knowledge and skills needed to succeed inside and outside the dojo. You might tweak certain bits to emphasize certain things, but ultimately we would probably all agree that a healthy club is one where people's progress in Kendo is our foundation, and that collectively we all do our bit to help, to train, and encourage fellow club members to succeed in their goals. Now, recognizing that being of service is an ideal philosophical stance to take as a coach, in my experience, things can start to get a bit shaky when only one or two people are doing the heavy lifting. Basically, when only a couple of seniors are attempting to be of service and everyone else, for want of a better term, is on the take. So this is our segue to the first aspect of a healthy club culture that I have found is a must-have, a culture of give and take. Of course, every dojo has its own unique spirit and its own heartbeat, but I've noticed that sometimes this heartbeat can be overshadowed by a culture of take. And what I mean by this is that our efforts to serve are eclipsed by a counter stance of taking, where people never really offer or are never really given the chance to give back in a reciprocal way. Now, don't get me wrong, learning and improving are crucial in Kendo at all stages. So as I've said and firmly believe, as coaches, our role is to serve our students' needs. So we should be asking what their goals are, what their why is, and doing what's within our control to help our members to achieve their goals. The problem that I've seen is that after a while, the club might become stronger in terms of technical skills, but this doesn't easily translate into getting things done. Taking on a wee project like running a fundraising effort or taking charge to get a group of people together to head away to a seminar or a shiai doesn't happen easily or often because people have become used to the usual suspects taking the lead and doing the work. And this, from what I've experienced firsthand, does not lend itself to a healthy club environment. At best, it means that the progress of the club towards its collective goals will be slowed down. And at worst, and this is all too real, coaches or those in positions of leadership, i.e. the ones who tend to pick up the lion's share of the work, burn out. They leave and are difficult or impossible to entice back in the future. I've seen this happen so many times. People burn out because there's no one willing to give back. And this is why the concept of give and take is so important for me. A healthy club culture is about finding the balance so that our capable members, those who are actually really good at leading a piece of work or a project or in the coaching role, are happy to continue because they not only see and feel the gratitude of others for their efforts, but they also see light at the end of the tunnel, meaning that they can be comfortable in the knowledge that someone else will be able to take charge of this work in the future, or that the many other roles and responsibilities will be willingly filled by someone else. I know you know what this feels like because it happens to all of us at some point. The difference is that you and I haven't left completely yet, so there's still a chance to start influencing the club culture towards a balance of give and take over time. Ideally, I think this expectation can and should be set early on. We can even say it clearly to people within the first few months of their time in the club. We're here to serve your kendo needs, but we also expect that you will do what you can to give back and to contribute to the club's health. To be honest though, I don't think we can realistically expect a club's membership to be fully give and take 100% of the time. There's always going to be people who are firmly entrenched in the idea that they are out for number one, just to have a bash and go home. And I actually think that that's okay. In fact, we'll all be in that mindset at some stage or other, depending on what the goal is and what we're working on at the time. When I would prepare for the World Champs, I was completely selfish about what training I did and what jobs I took on in the club. Sometimes there would be people to cover me and sometimes there wasn't, and each set of circumstances had an impact. But the trick has always been to strike a balance where the take mindset can be covered by the give mindset in the medium to long term. So the takeaway is that as coaches, we play a significant role in setting the tone for a culture of give and take early on. We should communicate that while we're here to serve the learning needs, we also expect every member to give back in some way in return. And crucially, this doesn't necessarily mean waiting until they reach a certain grade, like it so often does in the dojo. Find out what professional expertise people have, what previous leadership experience they've had in another club, or even how they see themselves contributing to the warm-ups. It's about creating a cycle of giving to balance the taking, and that better ensures the club's health and longevity. And this, I've found, can be strengthened and embedded on the basis of the second aspect I want to share, a culture of recognition. Picture a dojo environment where the people's effort to give back, no matter how small, is recognized and appreciated. This is a culture of recognition. And this really works to strengthen a club or any organization of volunteers for that matter. For instance, research from Grout and Fisher suggests that social recognition is a powerful motivator, even more powerful than money for many people. Because as social animals, it's when we feel valued that our motivation soars. So with this in mind, the impact of acknowledging people's dedication, their progress, and their contributions to the dojo's journey goes a very long way in helping to create a club culture that can both survive and thrive over time. Of course, there are heaps of different ways to tackle this, but nothing fancy is required most of the time. Recognition might be a special mention at the end of training, it might be an award at some point during the year, or it might be a shout out on the club's social media page or in an email. It's amazing to me how genuine recognition can boost morale and motivation. And when club leaders get into the habit of acknowledging people more often for the small and the large efforts that they're making, the people who really enjoy chipping in as their way to help the club feel exactly as they should, valued by the leader and the group at large. And what a way to encourage a culture of give and take at the same time. And let me take this opportunity to make a shout out to you, coach, because we also know that so much of what you do goes unrecognized. So on behalf of everyone, thank you for all your efforts, Sensei. Okay, before we jump into the final component of culture that I have found underpins a healthy club, time for a quick coaching question. What is the biggest cause of burnout you have noticed in your club? Is it an imbalance between give and take in your club? Is it competing responsibilities at the club, home and work? Maybe it's the club politics that wear you down. Possibly a loss of motivation after failing a grading. Let me know in the comments below what other dynamics in your club have led to people fizzling out over time. Okay, now let's talk safety, because this is a really key component to having a healthy club culture in my experience. We know, of course, that Kendo training can be pretty physically demanding and intense. This is actually what I wrote my master's thesis on, the difference between violence and tough training methods like kakari geko and kangeko. Let me know in the comments if you want me to go deeper on that. But in the meantime, one of the key findings in my research was the importance of establishing a safe and respectful environment to make sure people did not feel as if they were being singled out or picked on in hard trainings. When I was a kid, I would regularly have my butt kicked by my two older brothers, Alex Bennett and Hiro Imafuji. The idea was that these fatal beatings were a form of character building, and that if I did fall down 7 times and get up 8 times, I would be better for the experience in the long term. Both Alec and Hiro took the time to tell me how genuinely proud they were of me in those efforts, and that I only had to push myself harder and they would be there to help. The key thing that they did, and that came through in my research, was taking the time to ensure that the recipient of a harsh kendo session feels as if they're pushing their own limits at a pace and a tempo that is their own choice. So in other words, it isn't occurring because sensei is in a rough mood or that senpai has it out for them. A culture of safety occurs when the student's perception of the coach's intent is grounded in support and not fear. So this may involve opening up a dialogue about why we do certain things in kendo sessions and how we will know if or when things are getting too much. Of course, we want people to push their limits, but only if that's what they want as well. And importantly, that they understand how and why this happens in this club. So this component of culture extends to physical and emotional safety, and arguably to child safeguarding as well, as in our duty of care as coaches to ensure that young people are safe from predatory behavior or abuse when interacting with adults in the club. Now, this one is a massive topic, but it is increasingly important for coaches in all sports to be aware of. I've done a big piece of research on this too, so let me know in the comments if you want me to make a video on the topic of child safeguarding and policy to help out with your efforts in this space. And if you're not thinking about child safeguarding yet, or you think it isn't part of your remit, get ready, because it is now, no matter what country you're in. No doubt you know that a healthy club culture doesn't just happen overnight, and it certainly doesn't sustain itself without ongoing effort. It's a journey that requires continuous tweaking and dedication, but the results are clearly worth it and visible when we have members achieving their goals and sticking around for longer on average. With the right club culture, we can get an environment where everyone thrives, learns, and falls in love with Kendo even more. But there is one member in particular that we must have on board with all of this, because if this person isn't on the same page, things can get really rough really quickly. Click this video to find out who that person is.